Hello, I am Stacia Fisher Robinson, class of 1983 of Spelman College, and we are so excited to welcome Dr. Lenora Taitt-Magubane to Montgomery,
Thank you.
Alabama. And with us we have Dr.
Barbara Williams Thompson, class of 75. And I was fortunate to meet her when I was attending the Abyssinian Baptist Church in New York. And I cannot tell you how I think that coincidence really made this whole event happen. So thanks again for taking the time to do this.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm Lenora Taitt-Magubane, class of 1961, Spelman College, and I'm
Yay!
happy to be here.
Well, we're thrilled. As you mentioned, you were here for uh, to see the sites civil rights tour here in Montgomery, Alabama, and
Yes, I know many people. Of course, I knew Dr. King and a number of other people in this area, being a part of SNCC, being a part of the Atlanta student movement, the Committee on Appeal for Human Rights. But I've been through, but not been here exactly to see everything. So I just said I wanted to do my own civil rights tour. And luckily, my friend said, well, we can do that. And I went to Savannah, where she is, and we drove up and I made up the itinerary.
then here you are.
And here I am.
Well, the tie-in to why we are here at City Hall in Montgomery, Alabama, is I wanted you to come in the actual space and place that Rosa Parks was actually brought when she was arrested. So out here in the hallway, we have her records of where she was actually fingerprinted and all of that. The building where she was brought to be processed is right over here. And we just kind of thought that would be something different that you wouldn't have been able to do as part of your tour. And so we welcome you here for that.
Always happy for little
Well,
surprises.
that's a nice little surprise.
The other reason for being at City Hall is that in addition to the Rosa Parks tie, this is Montgomery has the first African American mayor in the history of Montgomery.
Yes.
And we also thought it was important for you to be able to meet him and see him. And so we thought that was particularly poignant for you and something. He's also a Morehouse man, and we did not want to miss that. We wanted to tie in that link. So we have lots of links that we think you're going to enjoy and little surprises.
Wonderful.
All right. So
Wonderful.
let's do
My
it.
pleasure.
Well, on behalf of the residents and the city council here in Montgomery, we want to welcome you. It's good to have you back here. We certainly appreciate your sacrifice that you made being one of the original Freedom Riders, and that's something that we have discussed uh, around the city, and I've discussed it to audiences and people that have come here to visit to learn more about that movement. But I'm just honored to have you here and really glad that we're able to just say hello to you and thank one of our trailblazers for all that you've done.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to meet you, and congratulations.
Thank
How
you.
many years have you been?
Just about 2 years now.
2 years? Well, congratulations. It's still in order.
Thank you. I only set them all the way until I'm no longer
That's
in
right.
this position, so I
Yes, you
appreciate
have-
that.
So it's wonderful. Are you a native?
I am.
You're a native.
Born and raised here, and then of course went to Morehouse
Morehouse.
for my undergrad. So it's always great to see, the Spelman legacy and people like yourself who have done so much throughout the country and throughout the world for that matter, and moved and worked around the country and then came back here about 15 years ago now.
Oh, so you're back home.
Yes,
You're back home.
back home trying to bring about some change like you all were doing through civil disobedience and the movement that you helped lead. And I think it's just great that we can recognize you and that we're capturing your story. We're capturing this oral history because it's something that we often just think about one or two, uh, seminal moments and maybe a few more figures, and we don't think about that it was a collective that really brought about the change.
In fact, I would say there were 400 and about 32 freedom riders throughout the country.
Wow.
My freedom ride, the freedom ride that I was in, was from Atlanta to Albany, Georgia, on the trains, Georgia Central Railroad,
Hmm.
um, trying to deal with the ICC ruling,
Mm-hmm.
which was not being implemented, although it had been passed,
Mm-hmm.
and was not implemented then, and that's how we ended up in jail in Albany.
Wow.
But there were 430, at least 432, according to the record. There might have even been more.
How did you first get involved in that, and how did that bring you here to Montgomery during that period in your life?
Well, I've not been to Montgomery. I've been through Montgomery, but
Right.
I've not been to Montgomery. I was at Spelman College,
Mm-hmm.
and I was involved in the movement there and the planning of the movement there and in Atlanta. Um, Helped to strategize the sit-in demonstrations that took there. Spent time in jail in Atlanta, 15 days each time, twice, 15 days each time.
Wow.
And then at the same time, I was volunteering with SNCC, and the headquarters was in Atlanta.
Sure.
So I was there. I was also involved with the YWCA on campus. I was president, and we did the nonviolent workshops. And Dr. King, being from Atlanta, was always around and a part of the desegregation movement. He was around at that time. In fact, went with us on our first sit-in.
Did he really?
He did. In fact,
What was
his
that like?
well, it was an interesting experience. It turned out for him to be a worldwide experience because he had just moved to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
He had just moved to Atlanta and was driving home one evening, was driving Lillian Smith, the writer, home in Clayton, Georgia, driving her home and was stopped by the police. And he had not changed his license plate.
Wow.
And so they said that it had expired. So he technically was driving without a license. And so he was arrested that time. And then he was arrested, but then put on probation. And if anything were to happen, he would have to serve that time.
I see.
Now, when we planned the sit-in movement, when we were sitting in there um, with the Committee on Appeal, I remember that it was stated, "Oh, let us ask him to join us," and we would send him to Rich's department store into the Magnolia Room with two other people, not knowing about this other charge. And so he said yes, and he went. And we didn't know until we got out. After 15 days, we got out because they said they were going to negotiate, which they didn't. So we had to go back in. But when we were waiting for him to come out, he told us to come out after 15 days. I remember we had a meeting inside the jail, and he said, "You all should come out because they said they're ready to negotiate, and you come out in good faith."
Mm-hmm.
So we did. And I remember being downstairs, and we were down first, and then the fellas came out. "Where is he?"
Mm-hmm.
Found out that he was rearrested.
Wow.
Now, he was rearrested, and that was during the time that Kennedy and Nixon were running for office. And they were running for office, and when he was rearrested, the question was what was going to happen. They wanted the South. Kennedy people wanted the South, so everyone was walking gingerly.
Mm-hmm.
That they didn't do anything. Nixon didn't do anything. But I think it was Bobby Kennedy, or it might have been Jack Kennedy that called Mrs. King.
Mm.
to see how she was doing and not to offer condolences, but to offer, sort of support. I just wanted to know how you were doing, that type of conversation. But it made national news. Um, Nixon did nothing. And Daddy King went to the pulpit and said, who was for Nixon, and said he was putting his votes behind Kennedy.
Wow.
And we know how that election turned
Right.
out.
Right.
But it was a very interesting time. And it was, at the time, it was sad that it had to happen, all of that. I mean, we're here today and all of this is happening.
Right.
Changes are being made, but they're being made in the blood, sweat, tears of so many people. And it's a shame that we have to go through all of these horrors in order for progress to take place. But I guess that's the way of life.
Did you think that the change would come sooner when you all were participating and planning the Freedom Rides, or were you not sure the change would come at all, but just felt the purpose and the calling in order to do it?
Well, I wasn't in on the planning of the Freedom Rides. I was in only on the planning of the Freedom Ride to Albany.
I see.
The one that took place, which John Lewis and others were on, that went from Washington and came across the South. That was done out. That was organized by CORE, actually,
Okay.
Congress on Racial
Mhm.
Equality. But I think when we were planning, there's always, with youth, there's always hope. And you think that things are going to happen overnight because we're always very anxious,
Right.
at least when I was young.
I understand.
And, very anxious and thinking, well, it's going to happen now. It's going to happen yesterday. uh, and things did happen. And you expected people to follow through. Like when the ICC ruling took place and said that they could no longer stop people from going to one side of the bus or one side of the train or inside restaurants, that it was over. But it didn't work out that way. Um, and you learn as you get older that change takes a long time to come about. And sometimes we retrogress in the process. But that's it. It's something you learn as you get older.
Well, we certainly can relate to that here in Montgomery, and
All over.
yes, and it's interesting that we've taken certain positive steps forward, but there seems to be some push to change that and
Moving
move us
back.
back. That's right. That's right.
Not
But
so fast.
exactly, and we when you're in a position like mayor here as I am, I know I didn't get here by myself. I came through a lot of steps, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of sweat, as you said earlier, from a number of people to help change the
Yes.
political process that ultimately uh, elected me to be the first Black mayor here in the city. And I just wanted to make sure that I got a chance to say thank you for what you have done, what you continue to do. And I'm glad that this history is being captured. And I hope that it will inspire uh, not only the present generation, but future generation of leaders to see how they can bring about change and learn from your story and learn from what you have done as a student all the way throughout your life. I think that's a great example for us to take away. And so I'm glad that we're discussing this here. And I really am honored to say thank you and be able to sit with you just for these few minutes in hopes that I can add something to what you've already done to share with our community and to share with people that come to visit Montgomery to learn about this nation's sacrifices and sins, quite frankly, and how we can learn from that. But, it's only worthy if we do something with it.
That's true. That's true. And it's only worthy if, in fact, we keep on keeping on
Yes,
and not sit back and rest on the laurels of others, because we
totally agree.
stand on the shoulders of so many people who have gone uh, and who sacrificed so much.
Yes.
I mean, there are people that I know in Mississippi and other places who are gone now, um, and went through so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we must never forget it. And we need to pass it on to our children, our grandchildren, and those that are coming up. But you have already started that path by being here in this position that you're in now.
Well, thank you.
That fight, I know it wasn't easy.
No, it's not.
And there are those who would, don't want you here still and will do everything to keep you out and keep you not getting. We just had an election
Yes.
in this country, and we saw how things went and are going.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen what the last 4 years were like. So we can go back if we don't fight, keep moving forward.
I agree.
So the struggle continues.
Yes. Well, I will do my part, both from position of mayor and just also from the platform that I'm blessed to have, as well as sharing that with other peers and friends of mine from their positions. And I always like the opportunity to talk about people like yourself when I'm talking with students and we're talking to groups that are visiting Montgomery. And so we'll continue to share the story. But thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here and taking time out just to speak with me.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.